of the Sovereign Thinkers. This is LL3's newest podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy mangroves of South Florida. And today's date is Thursday, April 27th, 2017. And, I know some people are making a big deal on what's been happening in reference to Donald Trump's executive order on not stop federally funding on states that support sanctuary cities. And in a person like myself, in good faith, I'm not really too keen with that subject, and nothing to do with ethnic or anything like that. It's on ethics and principles. But am I saying everyone who is in these sanctuary cities illegally are bad, wicked individuals? Absolutely not. But the contrary is, you got folks in here who are naturalized, have to earn their way, and have merit to be a citizen, are being slapped in the face as well. So, but you have to look at all sides, and I have talked about this in the past, and about what the feds can do and cannot do. Judge Napolitano may agree that stop federal funding is considered a legitimate way. But there was that judgment that occurred, and the judge was claimed pretty controversial as well. So I'm going to be talking about those areas and plus many other subjects. So I want to make this pretty, just cut to the chase. And we're going to talk about it right here. It's from michaelmcharry.com, which he represents the 10th Amendment Center. And it says here, Sanctuary City Injunction, a win for the 10th Amendment. And it's interesting, the commentary, and he writes here, goes, if you consider yourself a conservative who believes in upholding the Constitution, you should celebrate at least one aspect of the injunction of a federal judge slapped on President Trump's Sanctuary City executive order. Many conservatives have already expressed outrage at the injunction issued by U.S. District Judge William Ork Tuesday, citing the decision as another example of liberal judicial activism. In fact, at least one aspect of his ruling counts as a victory for the Constitution. The challenge to the EO brought by Santa Clara County and San Francisco, California addressed a number of issues, and the legal framework surrounding the order has multiple layers instead of trying to unravel the entire thing. I want to simply focus on one constitutional issue raised by the plaintiffs. This came out yesterday, so the 10th Amendment ramifications of the executive order. Santa Clara and the city of San Francisco argue that withholding all federal funding to punish them for the refusal to cooperate with federal immigration enforcement would violate a well-established legal principle as the anti-commandeering doctrine. All right, there's a link on it you can really read. It's very interesting, and I'll proceed here. It remains unclear if the EO will go that far, practically speaking. Nevertheless, the judge felt that the language in the order was vague enough to support such a conclusion. His handling of the constitutional issue is that broad-based defunding of sanctuary cities will create affirmed an important 10th Amendment principle and is worth highlighting. Since 1842, the Supreme Court held that the federal government cannot force states or the practical or the political subdivisions to utilize their personnel and resources to implement federal programs or enforce federal laws. The principle rests on the 10th Amendment and the resulting separation of powers between state and federal governments. The anti-commandeering doctrine was most succinctly articulated in Prince versus the United States, which is considered when Sheriff Prince and Mack challenged the United States on the Brady Act. Okay, so I want to continue on here. Here's a quote. The federal government may neither issue directives requiring the states to address particular problems, nor command the state's officers of those of their political subdivisions to administer or enforce a federal regulatory program. It matters not whether policy making is involved, and no case-by-case weighing of the burdens or benefits is necessary. Such commands are fundamentally incompatible with a constitutional system of dual sovereignty. In a nutshell, the federal government has the ultimate responsibility to enforce federal law. State and local can assist that enforcement, but the federal government cannot compel them to do so. The court has long been held that using the threat of withholding funding in a consive matter violates the anti-commandeering doctrine. This was specifically applied in the Obamacare case when Judge Roberts held that the feds could not coerce states into expanding Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act by threatening to withdraw current Medicaid funding. See, this is across the board. Okay, it's just if it has to stick. This is something you gotta look at here. As part of his ruling, Orrick applied the anti-commandeering doctrine to the Trump EO. He first summed up the plan's argument. The counties have demonstrated that their sanctuary policies reflected their local judgment on what policies and practices are most effective in maintaining public safety and community health. Because they argue that the executive order seeks to undermine his judgment by attempting to compel them to change their policies and force the federal government's immigration laws in violation of the 10th Amendment. Their claims implicate a constitutional threat. The judge then asserts that their constitutional arguments will likely prevail. The counties argue that Section 9A violates the 10th Amendment because they can attempt to conscript states and local jurisdictions to carry out federal immigration law. The counties are likely to succeed on this claim as well. The federal government may not compel the states to enact or administer a federal regulatory program. New York 505 U.S. Act 188. Federal government may neither issue directives requiring the states to address particular problems nor command the state's officers or those of their political subdivisions administer or enforce a federal regulatory program. Prince versus the United States, 1997. That is true. Whether Congress direct commands a state to regulate or indirectly coerce a state to adopt a federal regulatory system as its own. Notice, the judge quotes directly from Prince. He also cited Sebelius, the Obama care case, in his discussion. The aspect of Orrick's decision was a strong affirmation of the 10th Amendment and the anti-commandeering doctrine that flows from it. By reaffirming this important legal principle, Orrick empowers state and local governments. The anti-commandeering doctrine provides a court-approved tool state can use to resist federal actions. You may not like cities and states refusing to cooperate with federal immigration enforcement, but you should not base your constitutional principles on individual policies. Consider this. A state can apply this exact same legal reasoning to create sanctuary for guns by refusing to cooperate with enforcement on federal gun control. Undoubtedly, the same people throwing a fit about Orrick's injunction on Trump's sanctuary, a city EO, would throw a major party if a judge made an exact ruling supporting a state taking on federal gun control. This demonstrates a sad reality. The vast majority of Americans care more about advancing their individual policy preference than they do consistently supporting constitutional principles. And he's right, because you got folks are a bunch of double-standing douchebags, okay? They don't do one thing, but they'll support the other. It's pure hypocrisy, all right? Example is abortion, okay? Like, they'll go up in arms if a state will stop funding and so forth. Anyway, fascist, Nazis. But it comes to gun control. Oh yeah, make our streets safer. Let's deprive people's right to bear arms and violate their natural born rights. It's just to give you an example. But I will continue on here. Sadly, many constitutionalists, conservatives, and libertarians will fight this ruling tooth and nail. They had better watch what they wish for. If the court should ultimately erode the anti-commandeering doctrine, they will lose the most effective tool they have to resist federal power. And you can download the entire judicial order here as well. and I'm definitely going to keep this. And this is well written too by Michael McHarry, because remember, this is what we call the United States of the United States, not the centralized states. There's no such thing as federal law supersedes state law. If it's constitutional, that's one thing, but the states can say, hey, we don't really want this in our town, All right, so it's just really, you got to look at everything across the board. So I tell everyone, look at your federal constitution and state constitution. Good examples, two good examples. The U.S. Patriot and Domestic Security Acts. 8 states and over 400 municipalities, including Broward County, which is in Fort Lauderdale, have nullified it. See, it can be done. So, damn we do, damn we don't. Nothing's going to be perfect. Even with sanctuary cities. And like I said, myself, in good faith, I'm not really too crazy about it. But the only way to do this is address it, get a referendum on a state level. Okay, and which yesterday, the last episode I've done, talked about Texas. They passed a bill to prohibit sanctuary city policies. So, and that's legal under the 10th Amendment, and the states can do that. So, everyone out there, if you don't want sanctuary cities in your state, you have to bring it to your state capital rather than Washington, D.C., so that they can work with the federal government on those conditions, but you cannot conscript it. There's a big difference. Same thing with the ACA, the Affordable Care. You try to shove it down people's throats, and it's illegal. So is a good another thing too. A lot of people don't realize the drinking of alcohol is a national law, which is 21, totally unconstitutional, violates the 10th Amendment, and Prince versus the United States is a presidential case. Something to look at. Okay? It's just giving you the facts. Not just an opinion, I'm a bobblehead from Fox News. I don't do that. So, I want to proceed here. It was interesting, Breitbart make a big thing about the judge. Okay? And he says, this is from Breitbart, it says, judge who blocked Trump's sanctuary city order raised $200,000 for Obama. Okay, yeah, so he supports another bend over Bobby puppet to the New World Order. What else is new? And as it reads here is by Catherine Rodriguez and came out yesterday as well. It says here, California judge who blocked President Trump's executive order seeking to withhold federal funds from sanctuary cities reportedly raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for former President Barack Obama. And the donor's records is available, and it's under citizen.org, public citizen, and it says right here, his name William H. Arick, and his employer Cobblers, Patch, Duffy, and Bass in California. He raised at least Vice Chair John Kerry, all right, raised $100,000, another CFR stooge, and he donated to Barack Obama for at least $200,000. And Carolyn Ulrich, $30,000 to committee supporting Barack Obama. Yes, so you got someone that supports a police state who's just another franchise manager of Burger King. All right, but I will continue on here. U.S. District Judge William Ulrich III of Northern District of California ruled against the Trump administration after the city of San Francisco and county of Santa Clara sued over the president's plan to withhold federal funding from cities or counties that harbor illegal aliens, Fox News reported. Judge Ulrich said that Trump's orders targeted broad categories of federal funding for sanctuary governments and that plaintiffs challenging the order were likely to succeed in proving it unconstitutional. Ulrich's decision will block Trump's executive order for now, while the federal lawsuit makes its way through the courts. The judge not only raised $200,000 for Obama in 2008, but he also raised $30,000 to committees supporting the former president that year. Fellows reported that the same judge issued a restraining order in 2015 against the Center for Medical Progress for advocacy groups responsible for undercover videos that reportedly showed Planned Parenthood employees planning to sell baby organs. So black people, the judge should be apolitical, and not allowed to promote or donate to either party. And as a solution, resolve it on a state level, where I put that link on for the state of Texas. Okay, so people can read that. And like I said, my friends, you got to look at everything across the board. So be careful what you wish for. All right? So don't run, be a crybaby, and let the federal government take care of it, or the Supreme Court and all of that debacle. Resolve it on a state level. Plain and simple. It'll take time, but you'll be better off than waiting for the feds to do something about it. Because if this gets turned over, the anti-commandeering doctrine can be jeopardized. So always think before you speak or do. All right, next one here came out a couple of days ago, and it was originally originally from Inside Sources. All right, and it was it says here, we need to defend free speech. We need to defend speech we hate. It is by Lee Rowland, Senior Staff Attorney, ACO Speech, Privacy, and Technology Project. And it says here, controversial, critical, confrontational, and challenging speech is an essential part of any successful college education. Without it, institutions of higher education cannot truly be said to be preparing students for the world outside of the ivory tower. For many, a college campus is the last stop on the train to true adulthood. Part of being an adult in America means living our constitutional values. Foremost among them are First Amendment rights to make our opinions heard and listen to others speak. The Supreme Court has spilled barrels of ink defining the First Amendment rights of students from kindergarten to postgraduate studies. There is no question that the law has resolved into age-based sliding scale. For young ones, the core goals are safety and discipline. But as students age, the shadows of the Constitution start to spread across the school day. By the time students graduate from high school, courts expect freedom of speech not to be just in the student's best interest, but the school's interest as well. And that's not just because free speech is a formalistic constitutional principle. It is an indispensable part of our civic education. Justice Robert H. Jackson, writing the Supreme Court in 1943, wrote something truly beautiful about the purpose of an education. They are educating young for citizenship is reason for scrupulous protection of constitutional freedoms of the individual. If we do not strangle the free mind as its source and teach youth to discount important principles of our government as mere platitudes. Remarkably, Jackson was referring to grade school students, and the court rightly held that forcing patriotism on little ones was both unconstitutional and foolish. If we think incalculating constitutional values is important when kids are K-12, it should be nothing less than a core part of the curriculum at any college or university. Soon students will graduate, and then when they do, they'll step into maelstrom of civic life, which can be frankly horrific. By constitutional design, ours is a world where homophobic street preachers have a right to accost you at a funeral for a loved one, where avowed racists can bring a Nazi rally to your town, where Congress has no right to criminalize appalling images of animal violence. I suspect that many students would like to be able to effectively counter-protest at the Westboro Baptist Church, or effortlessly dismantle the racist garbage spewed by today's alt-right, or publicize and advocate against animal cruelty. I sure hope they do, because we need them to tackle public policy issues with the confidence of a generation determined to better us all. That means being an advocate, speaking out, convincing others, confronting, hearing, and countering offensive speech we disagree with is a skill. And the one that should be considered a core requirement at any school worth is SALT. To be clear, I'm not suggesting that free speech is without grave cost. I cannot imagine the pain of the Holocaust survivors felt knowing that the KKK would march through their own towns, or the anguish a grieving father felt when his son's funeral was surrounded by petty signage of hate. On campus, and when speech crosses the line into targeted harassment or threats or creates a pervasively hostile environment for vulnerable students, it isn't protected. We fortunately have federal laws to ensure safe learning environments and equal access for all students, but being offended does not raise to that level. And we live in an odd country where the very First Amendment in our Bill of Rights protects hateful speech until it crosses that line. But that same First Amendment also protects the most heart and swelling markers of our democracy. I call it a republic, but I'll continue on here. The right to speak our values, to have a press free from censorship, to gather en masse in the streets and speak truth to power. Our Constitution protects hateful speech, yes, but on theory that our truly free speech means the best ideas will win out. We need students trained to really listen to ideas they hate and respond with better ones. In that regard, recent instances suggest that colleges are fundamentally failing their students as imparting these skills. Just the past few weeks, from one campus to another and another and another, liberal students have silenced conservative speakers with violence, outrage, and threats. This collection of hecklers' vetoes is the farthest thing from a victory for the progressive causes these students champion. These incidents have not shut down a single bad idea. To the contrary, they've given their opponents' ideas credence by adding the power to martyrdom. When you choose censorship as your substantive argument, you lose the debate, because none of us are the wiser about the better world those protesting students want to see. Instead of telling us they silenced others, in curricular terms, they didn't do the assignment. When students leave the nest of higher education, they will immediately be thrust into a rough and tumble world filled with things many of us don't want to see. Racism, sexism, ableism, cruelty. But we all know these things won't go away if we close our eyes. We need a next generation of students trained to take a deep breath, open their eyes, and change that world with their words and ideas. And he's right. I cannot argue with that. And this is why free speech is a natural born right. Period. I'm not going to censor myself to comfort your ignorance. If you don't like what I say, you don't have to listen to my show. Plain and simple. Even the new Black Panther Party, I call them quacks. I believe they're higher quacks, okay? But they have the right to speak their mind. It's like Comedy Central. And what's his name? Kurt Strom from the National Alliance. It looks like the National Alliance had been revived. He has a right to speak too. If he goes to these places, he has a right to speak his mind. Doesn't mean I'm going to go and shut him down. Yeah, but a lot of people should challenge him in good faith. Okay? So you got to always look at things in the bigger picture, my friends. And this is why, if you censor these people like you did with Milo, you lost. You folks who were involved in shutting down him, if you got to shut down Ann Caller, which I'm not even a fan of, you'll be the losers, not her. You'll be jeopardizing your natural born rights. Plain and simple. Let her speak. Challenge her. And don't use the race card to get your debate, because a lot of it is baseless. Have merit when you have these debates or discussions. Trust me, you'll go a lot further than you think. All right. Next one here came out yesterday, a couple of days ago as well. And this was from the investmentwatchblog.com. And this is interesting. This here goes, big business pays for Antifa. Hedge funds pay for Antifa. Alternative media outlets have published articles saying, gee, I wonder who Antifa is working for, are looking kind of suspicious. The list of donors are in this article, and the article came from jackposbleck.us. He's on Twitter. I believe he's a Trump supporter, too. And he goes, list of corporate donors to Antifa Front Group and BAM, which is By All Means Necessary. And it has Kellogg Foundation, Detroit Federation of Teachers, Ford Foundation, Impact Fund, Southern Poverty Law Center, Judge Gregory Mathis, Center for Constitutional Rights, UAW International, UAW, Michigan AFL-C. I'm just giving you a few here. Judge Greg Mathis, Buck Diner, Fund for Equal Justice, International Longshoremen Association, Local 1414, SEIU, Local 79, they were the Purple Shirts, and a Garment Transportation Union, Local 192, they're based out of Oakland, California, United Food and Commercial Workers International Union, all right, and United Educators of San Francisco, Dr. Melvin Murphy. I'm just giving you a few here. Of course, the United Steelworkers of America, Local 295. And there's a lot more here. And, of course, there's some links on here about the Ford Foundation is exactly like Soros' Open Foundation, another tax write-off for the very wealthy. Hedge fund managers and CEOs write the checks. They also donate to the ACLU and all others who donate that money to Antifa, which stands for Anti-Fascist Action, okay? They've been doing it for years. Politicians know it, but want donations and support those very same donors. The media is owned by those same people, and there's a thing called by LaRochePub.com. There's a link on that. You can see it for yourselves. And I read it. It's very interesting here. The government by the people, for the people, takes more than one vote. Tell your representative, tell them you're doing to obsessively work on getting them unelected if they don't call out the people attacking your democracy. And here's a quote here. The biggest global hedge funds and private equity funds are moving destructively on Germany, buying up its state and municipality-owned apartments and selling them to IPOs on Wall Street, buying state-owned savings bank in Berlin, Hesse, and other states, and merging them into international banks, buying up and cutting down auto and other industrial companies. Since long before then, Social Democratic Party Chairman Franz Montefiore called them the financial locusts. In 2005, the hedge funds have been defended against such criticism by printed or violent physical attacks by the Antifa, autonomous Chowden, and anarchist youth. The attacks have continued to present with December 2006 and January 2007 arson and low-level terror attacks against leading German and Swiss figures opposing hedge funds' predations. The message of these attacks: there will be no fight against international financial speculation, no national defense of industry, economy, banking, and housing from the financial locusts. No call for regulation or blocking or the buyout and looting firms. Anyone who moves in a direction will be branded as a fascist and a subject to terrorist attacks. The anarchist Antifa, fascists in fact, indeed, first attacked Lyndon LaRoche youth movement and political associates. On January 9, 2002, a group of mass stormtroopers emerged out of the building on Unter den Linden, the location of Berlin's Humboldt University, to attack a literature table set by organizers of the LYM and the Civil Rights Solidarity Movement. What an irony of history that this university's Antifa group, calling them the anti-Dungeon Antifa, anti-German, anti-fascist, attacked the organization that has brought to international attention the importance of Berlin's leading Orthodox Jew of the 18th century, Moses Mendelssohn, a philosopher who is known as Socrates of Berlin. The so-called anti-fascists claim to be attacking on behalf of the Jews of Israel, who are in fact the victims of the criminal policies of Dick Cheney's imperial war and its allies in Israel. Humboldt University was founded by Wilhelm von Humboldt, who, along with his brother Alexander, were raised in that rich cultural tradition marked by Moses Mendelssohn and Goldus Lessing, 1755 defense of Leibniz and Plato. Mendelssohn and Lessing, as young men, having newly met in Berlin, perhaps only years older than today's Antifa stormtroopers, launched a cultural renaissance and in process secured a place in history for Jews in Germany unparalleled since the day of Moses, Philo of Alexandria, and Maimonides of 12th century Egypt. The bizarre Antifa autonomous political sect emerged to take leadership of the radical scene under the new aggressive anti-Dutchian label. They have become the street component to their high-level backers who are running protection for the hedge funds, private equity takeover funds, and banks that are out to eliminate sovereign governments, interference in their global power. With the anti-Dutchian resistance to the globalization onslaught is slandered as anti-American and anti-Semitic. And so it's interesting. There's a video on here, too, about the so-called antifa bike locker. And he was a college professor. He was assaulted for battery, if I'm correct, for throwing a locker at a bystander. And that's, it's pretty damn cheesy. It's real pathetic of him based on that video. But see, one thing you have to look at with these movements, you're always going to have expect infiltrators, provocateurs, and who's actually funding them. Okay, they're just an example, according to this article. And even right-wing organizations and movements are funded by big-name corporations as well, or being infiltrated also. So it's not just attacking one particular group. That's giving you folks an example. You always got to look at this in a bigger picture. I recommend be outside looking in. And always got to study history, all right? You got to always be aware of these plutocratic movements. Doesn't matter what they are. And based on this and what I've seen in Berkeley is just an example. Who's actually funding this group? It's like, who's actually funding ISIS? Okay. And I'm not going to say it there because they're terrorists, but many of them are become criminal syndicates. Okay, I think I'll say that out of fairness. But the truth of the matter is, if you get into these movements, better examine the bigger picture. Don't get caught in this hype and hoopla, and follow your heart and conscience. Stand up for what's right. Even an individual like myself that supported the Ron Paul movement in 2007, 2008. I didn't really do much in 2011, 2012. I don't know why. It's very disappointing. But we're seeing the bigger picture. I never say, I'm a Ron Paul revolutionary, Ron Paul, because I'm myself freedom lover, sovereign thinker. And I use that at the meetings, the meetup sessions. And you get their attention a lot broader. And instead of saying, I'm a Ron Paul person, no, I'm a freedom lover, sovereign thinker. This is why you have to always look at these movements. Be inspired, not hired. So, and there's people I know or associate with them as Antifa, they're mainly rank and file. Not condemning them, but I don't want to see them get involved with the criminal elements that want to start trouble and they're being trapped. That's what's treacherous. So, the folks out there have to see things a lot bigger. And even what happened to Berkeley, the patriots, quote-unquote patriots, that say, I'm a lover of Trump. You have to see the bigger picture. Don't look at it as President Trump as your God and Lord and Savior. Study the Constitution as well. Study the Bill of Rights. Study the freedoms in your states, your rights in your state. Then you can make bigger, stronger impact. So, I'm going to continue on here. This is by Jerry Anelli. Came out yesterday. It says here from Miami New Times. Challenge to FPL plan to store nuclear waste beneath Miami's drinking water gets federal hearing next week. Multiple students have warned that fluid injected in the Boulder Zone, the lower section of the aquifers that sit underneath South Florida, could leak directly into Miami's drinking water. Despite those warnings, Florida Power and Light has barreled forward with the plan to store radioactive waste in the low-lying area as early as 2028. FPL also hopes to build 2 nuclear reactors and its Turkey Point nuclear generating station in Homestead, a site that the county and state have already cited for leaking salt water into the drinking water aquifer and radioactive wastewater into Biscayne Bay. FPL first filed plans to build those new reactors and to store the radioactive waste in the Boulder Zone back in 2009. Environmentalists, including Southern Alliance for Clean Energy and the National Parks Conservation Associations, quickly filed legal challenges and have been fighting since. Now, after 7 years, federal regulators will finally hold a hearing next week to discuss whether FPL can go forward with the plan that green activists worry could contaminate Miami's drinking water system with radioactive material and kerosene. In a phone call with reporters yesterday, representatives from SACE, and MPCA and lawyers for the two organizations spoke alongside South Miami Mayor Philip Stoddard to warn that time is running out to challenge FPL's waste storage plan. The Boulder Zone has two features that should scare the heck out of everybody, and Stoddard, who teaches at Florida National University, has become one of the FPL's most vocal critics. First is a feature called karst collapse, which is then the ceiling falls in, creating a conical depression with the hole in it, where the water can pass upwards into the Floridian aquifer. The second is a vertical fault lines, where the water can migrate into a place that can get to us. The U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission, a federal body, is tasked with approving FPL's environmental impact study for Turkey Point's new reactors. In 2010, SACE filed an appeal contending that the energy company's plan could leak wastewater into Biscayne aquifer, that area's largest source of drinking water. If SAC succeeds, FPL will be forced to rewrite its impact statement, potentially delaying the project by years. A second group called Citizens Allied for Safe Energy, or its case, Ankrum, also filed a petition with the NRC last year to stop the plan, but the NRC, through cases legal challenge out in January, claimed that it had been filed too late. More than 66,000 people have signed a Change.org petition asking state legislators to force FPL to rewrite its plans. But while FPL has tried to dismiss SACE's complaint for the last 7 years, regulators have decided the claim has enough merit to hold a hearing on May 2nd. Stoddard agrees. He says he sat on the NRC meeting last August where he first heard about the so-called rat race plan. Stoddard said he went home and researched the Boulder Zone and was stunned to what he found. According to FPL's environment impact statement, the Boulder Zone is hermetically sealed, meaning waste couldn't escape the area, but government documents refute that claim. A 2015 U.S. Geological Survey study conducted a tandem with Miami-Dade County used a technique called seismic reflection to deduce whether Boulder Zone contained any holes or leaks, and the study provided damning evidence that karst collapse structures and fault lines run all throughout the zone's Boulder Zone. In the past, Boulder Zone has a capacity to leak upwards. This is not mentioned in any of the safety reports that the NRC has, Stoddard said. In a written statement, a spokesman for FPL, Peter Robbins, dismissed SAC and his compatriots as an energy extremist. SAC is an anti-utility, anti-nuclear group with a political agenda, said via email. Protecting the safety of our customers and our team members is our top priority. Our men and women work and live in this community, and we are committed to ensuring their safety and public safeties and protecting the environment. He added that the company will use next week's hearing to share information about the quality of water that would be safely sent deep into underground. As part of the Turkey Point's Units 6 and 7 project, FPL contends that the levels of radioactive waste injected into the Boulder Zone will be far lower than regulatory benchmarks. The levels of every single compound in wastewater will be in compliance with strict federal standards. Even this water is going to an area that is deep underground and inaccessible, Robbins wrote. Extremely low levels of compounds will be confined in this area deep underground where they would mix with salty water. This process is used safely throughout the state and southeastern United States. Miami-Dade County has used the Boulder Zone to stash raw sewage since in the late 1960s, Both SACE and Starter said there are documented cases in which Zona has leaked that waste. SACE's legal team said its experts will share those instances with the NRC next Tuesday. Likewise, Starter warned that so-called diluted low-level radioactive waste can collect in nearby plants like kelp, for example, and become toxic over time. The environmentalists also voiced concerns that other portions of the Turkey Point expansion plan. Captain Dan Kipnis, a local fisherman and longtime climate change activist, warned that FPL's plan only plans for 12 inches of sea level rise by the year 2100. Scientists now expect seas rise by closer to 8 feet by that time. Well, if you build all these buildings, it actually sinks. So let's just give you an example. I don't call it climate change. I call it ruining of the earth. And I'll just proceed on here. We would get a tidal wave necessarily, but we could definitely get a storm surge from a hurricane. If the fuel rods loose cooling water, you can get an explosion like Fukushima. It could be catastrophic. Well, it's funny about that because they had a major hurricane that hit, Hurricane Andrew went through Homestead. And I know there was some damage on that in Turkey Point. So you have to really look at that as well. And I say that out of respect, too. Robbins, the FPL spokesman, disagreed and said the company has taken sea rise into account. Units themselves and surrounding facilities have been intentionally designed to sit far above most other structures in Miami-Dade County. He wrote the plant area raised to finished grade elevation approximately 19 feet to 25.5 feet above sea level. Yeah, so I'm going to keep on proceeding here. SACE's Director of High Energy Risk, Sarah Barzak, also warned that the project is simply going to be far too expensive for FPL to finish building. While costs of renewable energy like solar and wind power continue to fall steeply, nuclear reactors keep getting more expensive to build. The Westinghouse company, which is owned by Toshiba and builds nuclear reactors, went bankrupt earlier this year after costs ran too high at nuclear sites in South Carolina and Georgia. FPL is planning to build Westinghouse's AP1000 reactor at the Turkey Point expansion, but with Westinghouse's bankruptcy, the power company must now find a new company to build Westinghouse's design. Jason Barzak warned that even before Westinghouse went under, costs for nuclear plants exceeded $20 billion. Now you don't have Westinghouse anymore, Barzak warned. Nobody's going to bid that Westinghouse bid on those in South Carolina and Georgia. Give all concerned, says is had one obvious warning for FPL: get out of the nuclear energy game. Nuclear blinders need to be torn off, she said. The reality is energy efficiency is a fraction of the cost. As long as utilities can make money building big, old power plants, they're going to pass the cost unfairly to customers and will continue to use a stupid trend of building something that is not needed and not suitable. And it's interesting there because if you study history, because I do recall what happened with 3 Mile Island, the nuclear reactors went on a meltdown, and the area in Harrisburg got contaminated. So just to give you an example, it even happened in Simi Valley in the late 1950s, early 60s. Okay, just give you a couple of examples in the United States alone, and many of them too. There's been reports that there's a lot of leaks in those areas and on fault lines. That's what's so bizarre. Why the hell are you going to have a nuclear reactor on a fault line? That is plain stupidity as far as I'm concerned. So only thing I can really recommend, folks, is start buying solar power energy. Open up the free market. You got those basic rights under Article 1, Section 2 of the Florida Constitution. And the government can't really tell you what to do when you wipe your butt. You got to stop living in fear of having these nannies tell you what to do. They can't even take care of themselves. Okay? Like I said before, government is nothing more than control of the mind. But one thing about this, you got these big corporations that are trying to lobby and all that. It's the same thing. Let's go hand in hand, private, only hand in hand. You know, like let's get married, love and marriage, right? Come on. And actually, too, you have to look at the drinking water as well. So, I don't want to see this happening in my state. And I say that I lived here for 40 years. There's a lot of issues. Why make it worse? That's how I look at things, and hope for the best for these folks, man. And just say, give these guys some love and support. on the principle. I won't say climate change because that title's been watered down, but progress that can affect the environment, yeah, that's a different story. So, all right. Finally, this came out yesterday as well. It's from the Ron Paul report. Let me see here. It was spread by the Ron Paul report. Read the rest here. Yeah, I'm gonna do that right now. Originally from the Ron Paul report. It's by SHTF Plan. Yeah, I think it's the same. Yeah, same thing. Yeah, it came out yesterday. It's by Daniel Lang. So I'll use that instead of the Ron Paul report. It says here, why we have a Second Amendment. Venezuela plans to give firearms to loyalists so they can purge growing resistance. Can we say Nazi Germany, Ottoman Empire, Rwanda, Uganda, the hidden genocide by General Idi Amin Dada? Just to give you a few examples in the 20th century alone. And slaughtering the Mayan Indians in Guatemala, enslave everybody. Let's just see what they had to say. David Lang had to say about this. After enduring shortages of food, medicine for years, well as a total collapse of their currency, the people of Venezuela have had enough. Last week was an estimate that 2.5 million people marched against the Maduro regime, which had previously tried to strip away the powers of the opposition-led parliament. It's estimated that as many as 6 million people may have taken to the streets to protest throughout the country. And the lead-up to the protest, which had been planned for weeks by opposition political parties, President Maduro issued an alarming proclamation that didn't receive nearly enough press. He promised to expand the nation's armed militia and hand out firearms to many as 400,000 loyalists. The Bolivarian militia is currently approximately 100,000 were created by the late Hugo Chavez to assist the armed forces in defense of his revolution from external and internal domestic attacks. Speaking of 1,000 militia members dressed in beige uniforms gathered in the front of the presidential palace, Maduro said that vision remains relevant as Venezuela comes to face imperialist aggression. A gun for every militiaman, he cried. If you know your history of communist regimes, you know what comes next. Maduro's response to millions of hungry, pissed-off people is armed to his diehard supporters who will be able to purge the starving masses that dare to cross him. They may not face much resistance because 2012 Venezuela banned private firearms ownership. And there's a link for that too. You folks can see it for yourselves. Venezuela has brought a new gun law into effect which bans the commercial sales of firearms and ammunition. Until now, anyone with a gun permit could buy arms from a private company. So it's a privilege. Under the new law, only the army, police, and certain groups like security companies will be able to buy arms from the state-owned weapons manufacturer and importer. The ban is at least the latest attempt by the government to improve scrutiny and cut crime ahead of elections in October. Venezuela saw more than 18,000 murders last year in the capital, Caracas, to be one of the most dangerous cities in Latin America. Do you see how that works? Maduro's socialist policies turned that country into a crime-ridden hellhole and eventually turned the capital city into the most violent in the world. Instead of abandoning their centrally planned economy, which would bring prosperity to all and a lower crime rate, Maduro took away everyone's guns. Now that his socialist policies are bringing Venezuela's population to a brink of starvation and revolution, he decides to arm his violent and dim-witted loyalists. He has set up the perfect conditions for a genocidal purge of everyone who opposes him. I say that this would be a fine lesson for any would-be socialists in this country, but they don't seem eager to learn. Neither did many Venezuelans who elected these control freaks nearly 2 decades ago. They could have looked at any socialist experiment from the 20th century and realized that it was always in starvation and mass murder. Instead, they let themselves be conned by what is now the oldest and most deadliest political trick in the book. Interesting concept. Of course, you can have some people be critical about this as well. But the whole truth of the matter is, my friend, is that the whole thing is, my friend, is just you gotta look at everything a lot bigger than what it is. When you take away the people's rights, Who benefits? Corrupt governments and criminal organizations. They did that with swords in Rome by certain people. They did it in the United States with certain states. They didn't let black people own farms, mulattoes, whether free or enslaved. All right, I can go on in here. Just please, I'm not. You can look these up yourselves. Don't be shy. No guns for Negroes is a great example, and no guns for Jews are good examples. And check out Innocence Betrayed. Okay, just look it up. And I think there's an archive on it, too, at the library. Archives.org do have no guns for, Innocence Betrayed. You know what? I may just add that link to it. I might just do that, just so you can folks check it out yourselves. I'll do that. What the hell? And when it comes to government, you never trust them, regardless. And this is why the people in Venezuela, some beautiful people out there, do what's right. That's why, if individual like myself, you never trust the government, period. That's part of the United States Americans' duty and heritage, is to watch them like parrots, watch them like hawks. Trust them. Doesn't matter what level they are. And remember, the big cities, you have your mafias, and the mafia in the hick towns, the boss hogs. And they're all the same, but in different packages. Okay, folks, that is all for now. I'd like to thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share us throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or send me something that's interesting and may want to check out, please, if you do it, please address your correspondence with Quorum. You keep me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Tumblr, YouTube, Freedoms Network, Scene.life, Minds.com, or you can hit me at patreon.com/LookYouLuck3. 3 eyes, if you want to donate money or send comments there as well. In addition, you could email me at LookYouLuck3, which is look the number 3 altogether, at gmail.com, or if you're the encrypted ones, LookYouLuck number 0, number 3 altogether, at protonmail.com. I haven't really done a song for a while, and this gentleman named Zeta Hall, he's one of my Facebook pen pals, and we have cool discussions, I would say. Very honorable discussions. No malice, no name calling. But he's one sharp dude. And he's a musician. And I'm going to add Reverb Nation site so you can check it out, buy some of his music, and support local music. So it's an acoustic version called Angel. And it's very nice. And I'll just in the mood to hear something pretty cool. So, what the hell. Hopefully you folks enjoy it. All right, my friends, once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that the demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.
sometimes much more than it seems. Her wings extending, am I pretending? And ask myself, is this real? Wake from my dream, my angel, it seems just a vision. And then she